All right, ladies and gentlemen, right. I'm gonna introduce you now to a new topic, right? Which is supervision of a project. Project needs to be supervised. Understand it? Right? Because when you initiate a project, remember what I said. To start a project is for you to achieve a certain purpose or certain objectives, if you will. My friend, sit down very well. Don't be making noise with your chest, right? Hello, sit properly, please. So you need to ensure that you manage your project very well. It's very, very important. You might be given the whole resources for you to do your project, but if you don't manage the resources very well, you don't manage the time very well, you don't manage the capital or whatever resources that have been allocated to you to manage, to run your project, then at the end of the day, you will not be able to achieve the predetermined project objectives, or rather, the objectives that you set out to achieve as far as the project goals and mission statement is concerned. So you need to learn how to supervise. Project needs to be supervised. So in this module, we are going to learn how to undertake management activities. When we talk about supervision, it's about management, in short. Do you understand what I mean? Right. Then we need to be able to explain how activities and responsibilities for the activities are assigned. How activities and responsibilities are assigned. Because in a project, you got what we call a teamwork, right? You need to be able to assign activities and responsibility to people, to team members, which is very crucial, it's very important. Because when you are assigning tasks and responsibilities, you should be able to know the capability of those people. I remember there was a time I went to municipalities, when I was doing my research, I discovered that one of the problems they are having there is that when they are assigning roles and responsibility to people, they don't even take into consideration the capability of those people to deliver. You see, at the end of the day, when such happens, obviously you are bound to fail because nothing will be delivered. Right. So you need to, in the course of this module, we are going to learn more about that. We need to identify communication procedure for stakeholders. It's part of project supervision, right? Communication, which is very important. Key stakeholders needs to be communicated. They need to know what is happening, right? There are different ways or means that can be employed in a project environment for you to be able to communicate both effectively and efficiently with the key stakeholders. When we say key stakeholders, people that matters, without them the project will not be, or without their buy-in, if you will, the project will not be regarded as being successful. We need to know to identify and explain management processes, right? There are different management processes of project operation to support time frame of a project. Time frame is very important. That is the allocated duration, the determined duration which a project needs to be completed, start and finish. And any attempt, if you will, to go beyond that, what is going to happen? It's the cost that's going to be incurred. Then we need to be able to manage such processes as knowing about the project process measurements to measure progress of a project scope and the requirement. Scope of a project, as we do know, entails what needs to be done in the project, right? A project has got its own scope, the parameters, the framework, right? The confinement of the project, right? Going beyond such confinement, it's obviously going to attract cost to the project. In other words, project scope stipulates the boundary. You know what I mean by boundary? The boundary, right? If you look at the classroom, you see the wall, right? Define the boundaries, right? If I lock the door now, the windows are shut, I say, you must go out of the class. How will you go out? You cannot go beyond the boundary, right? You cannot pierce through the wall. Project management have got its own set boundaries that you need to ensure that you work within the parameters, the limits of the boundaries, right? For you to be able to do that, you need to supervise the project, who supervise the resources, supervise everything that needs to be done in the project. Then you need to have tools for you to measure your progress. For example, you can use a Gantt chart, right? A scheduling tools. By mere looking at the scheduling tool at any point in time will help you to know the essence you've gone in terms of executing the project. You can be able to track your progress, know whether you are running behind schedule or you are ahead of time, right? So that can assist the part of a supervision of a project. When you are employing or putting into use the different tools that can help you to monitor the progress of a project, that is part of a supervision. Then we need to be able to, we're going to learn about the evaluation tools to monitor, evaluate, and control project according to project management plan. A project management have got a charter, a project charter that constitute as well the project plan, right? So the project plan is a kind of a blueprint, if you will. You can call it a blueprint, right? Like you have in businesses, you got a business plan, right? You know the importance of a business plan. It helps to guide the entrepreneur or the businessman in the running of the business, right? So a project plan on its own, it serves as a blueprint or as a GPS that helps the project manager to be able to execute successfully, right? All what needs to be done in the project. So we're going to talk about the tools that can be employed in such a scenario to evaluate and control project according to the project management plan or to ensure that projects are being executed as per the project management plan. Execution of closed down procedures during the project management plan. So we are going to talk about how to the close up of a project because like explained to you before now that close up in a project is something that is ceremonious. Yes, somebody is by the door. Hello, yeah, just do it quickly. I give you 1 second. Yeah. All right. All right. Then execution of closed down procedures according to project management plan. Closed down procedures. Closing down of a project at the end of the project phase is something that is ceremonious, right? So we're going to talk about that in terms of what needs to be done and all those kind of stuff. Leadership techniques and skills, we've already done this, right? Leadership skills, techniques and skills identified in the project management. Steps to take when supervising a project. Right? There are certain steps that needs to be taken to ensure efficient supervision of a project. So we said to ensure that the activities and tasks of the project are being done as contained in the project schedule, you need to identify the problem that could delay the project and discuss the project with the project manager. Right? You look at the project holistically as it is, then you look for certain things that could constitute problems. It's part of the supervision that could derail the project, right? So when such uh, things are identified, then you need to discuss it with the project manager, right? So such problems that one could talk about is whatever you think that is likely to affect the quality standard of the project, right? It's like we are, for example, remember I told you your program here, your NCV program, right? It's a project, right? We are all working towards the achievement of the objective of such project. And at the end of the day, you should be able to get that paper you'll be fighting for 3 years, and your skill, knowledge, and attitude should have improved, and you are able to perform the things that ordinarily you were not able to perform when you came here 3 years ago, right? Those are some of the objectives that we are striving to achieve during the course of this project. So, in terms of the supervision that we are talking about here, right? For example, sometimes if I give you something, or let's say I deliver a lecture, and you don't understand, and you've got a better way of, you feel that is better for us to deliver it in such a way that you're going to understand it very well. Sometimes, most of the time, you do raise suggestion. Say, sir, let's do it like this, right? For example, if I've given you something, you say, sir, why not put it in the group? You know. So what it means is that you are being active in terms of trying to ensure that we are able to maintain our project, we are able to deliver what we need to deliver. You are in your own capacity by doing that, try adding your own quota, right? Your own voice to maintain the quality of the project, or whatever you feel that is going to disturb the quality of the project. What project am I talking about now? Whatever you feel that's going to affect you from being able to pass your subject, or that will affect your learning, right? You do raise suggestions as such. That is what I'm trying to talk about. For example, you work in a project team, right? The project team members need to look at various areas in the project that they feel is going to constitute a problem. Then they discuss it with the project manager. So such things, like we said, like things you feel are going to affect the quality of the project. Then any changes, like we say, identify problems that could affect the quality standard. Then you form the project manager, and any changes to be made to the procedure or deadline, inform and discuss with the project manager. Okay. For example, if I've, let's say, you've been given a task. If you feel that you are not going to be able to complete it within the stipulated deadline, you do talk to your lecturer, say, sir, we've got a lot of tasks to do. We will not be able to hand in your task within the stipulated time. Right? Because if the lecturer happens to force you to do that, at the end of the day, you are going to deliver poor quality, right? In such a way that it can impact on your performance. Then you can raise the objection, tell the lecturer that Can you please? We cannot be able to deliver. We need this a kind of an extension. You know, by doing that, you are playing your role to ensure that the quality standard of your learning here is not jeopardized. Right. So it's the same thing that happens in a project environment. Does it make sense to you? Right. Then we need to learn about how to assign activities and responsibility to personnel. Because you see, like I said over and over again, that a project or in a project environment, things are being done in a teamwork, right? You team together to achieve. They say team, you know what team means? Together, everyone achieve more, right? When you work together, then you stand a chance of achieving more. In working together, you need to be able to assign responsibilities to people. If I'm the project manager, we are all working in the same project, right? It will not be feasible for me to be doing everything alone. I need to delegate. You know what we mean by delegation? Assigning of responsibilities or authority, as the case may be, to someone else to act. That is what we mean by delegation. So task and responsibility needs to be assigned. So there are certain things that you need to consider while you assigning tasks and responsibilities to people. Like I said, before you assign a specific task to someone, you must first of all establish that that person have got the capability to perform such tasks. Otherwise, the job will not be done. We said processes of assigning tasks, right, is what we call delegation. I will explain to you, right? Delegation, that is, tasks and activities will be assigned to staff according to the WBS and project schedule that have been drawn up. Why are we using the WBS? Because the WBS contains exhaustively the whole task that needs to be done. Right. So the best resource to utilize in assigning tasks to team members is WBS. Remember what WBS constitutes. It constitutes all the tasks and activities that needs to be done in the project. So from there, you can be able to say, okay, this task should be assigned to this person, this one to this person, this one to this person. Because if you don't use WPS, you will end up not assigning certain tasks. You might end up omitting certain tasks without being assigned to people. That is why you say we must use a WBS or the can chart, which is the schedule. Right. Then job description are given to team members. Job description, right? Which contains the things that needs to be done, right? How it is to be done and when it's to be done. When you assign, that is another critical element that I want to explain to you as far as delegation is concerned, right? You don't just assign task and responsibility to people without those people not knowing what they needs to be done, which is the job descriptions. There should be a clear and articulated job descriptions in terms of what needs to be done, right? How it is to be done and when it is to be done. Do you understand? Then these are the steps that you need to follow. This one is very important when delegating, right? Delegation. I've explained to you what is delegation. What is delegation? Do you understand it? When you assign task and responsibility to people, you are delegating, right? That is what we mean, assignment of task and responsibility. So the steps that you need to follow is you must state what has to be done, how it must be done, and when it must be done. We are still going back to the idea of job description. I cannot just come to you and say, okay, you are the one that is going to be responsible for switching on and off the video, right? Without telling you when you need to switch it on and when you need to switch it off. You see? So Things must be well defined. That is what we are saying here. Then you assign the responsibility. How do you assign responsibilities? By placing an obligation of the employee to complete the tasks and activities, right? Not necessarily just to complete it, it must be completed within the time limit using the available resources. And failure to do that will reflect a bad conduct. And that bad conduct needs to be, that person, right, needs to be liable when he or she fails to do what he or she is supposed to do. Do you understand what I mean? Right. When you assign task and responsibility to someone, there should be that element of obligation, right? You must do it, and when you fail to do it at that specific period of time, then you are liable, right? And failure to do that can amount to, or is tantamount to, bad conduct, right? How many minutes do we have left? Then you need to create what we call accountability, right? How do you create a kind of accountability to make sure that make sure the employer is aware of being accountable for assigned tasks? Accountability. When you assign responsibility without creating accountability, if it happens that the job is not done, that means that person, even that person will not feel that sense of being accountable. You see, because when you tell that person that if you fail to do this job, this is what is going to be happen to you, or this is kind of penalty that is going to be meted at to you, then that person will then have that sense of accountability. And that is one of the problems we are having in government offices, in the public service, right? This element of accountability. People are not accountable, right? So we need to create that element, that component of accountability when you are assigning task and responsibility, right? Here we're gonna talk about the communication procedure, right? Okay, how many minutes remaining? Let's see if we can progress. How many minutes remain? 8. Hey, lovely. I'm loving it. Right. So now we talk about how to assign tasks and responsibilities. Right. But you know as well that there is no way, for example, depend on the magnitude or the size of a project, one person can do the whole job, right? You need to work with people, and those people needs to be assigned various tasks and responsibility, or rather respective tasks and responsibility. And when you are assigning task and responsibility, you must make sure that the job descriptions in terms of what they need to do and when to do whatever they need to do and how to do it must be well defined, and create that element of accountability as well, that failure for them to do it, they shall be held liable. That will make them to do the work. Right. That is what we just talked about. Now, step two, where are we? Communication procedure with stakeholders. As I said, communication is very paramount. You know what I mean by paramount? Paramount means important, fundamental to the success of a project. Right. For example, as we are here now, I told you we are working on a project, right? Your project. You see, if we don't communicate with you in terms of when to write your test or when to write your submit your task, right? How will you feel? You will feel bad, right? You know, and that could affect the quality of whatever we are striving to achieve here. Do you understand? Because if we don't tell you where you need to write tests, all of a sudden we'll just come in here, we bundle you into the class and give you tests, you fail. Are you going to get a good marks? You're not going to get good marks. Obviously, it's going to affect the quality, right? So that is why communication is very important. You as a project manager or whosoever position that you are occupying in a project, you must make sure that there is that uh, line of communication well open and people are able to hear what they need to hear on time, timelessly, as you would like to put it, or as you will. So, here we are going to talk about communication procedures with stakeholders. We said, as we have here, that this my battery now is finished now, man. This Chinese stuff. Okay. Then, when a project manager assigns tasks to team members, the detail of the task will be communicated to the team members and the stakeholders. Obviously, it has to be communicated. Otherwise, you will be like you will not in the first place you wouldn't know what needs to be done. So, for that job to be done, what needs to be done needs to be clearly and articulately communicated. Activities involving the distribution of info. Implement the communication plan, right? There should be a what we call communication plans, right? Communication plan goes like this. For example, you know, meetings, holding meetings is part of communication, right? You should be able to structure within the framework of the project when to meet, you know, to review progress. For example, if you have suppliers, you need to know when to have suppliers meeting, right? You need to know when to meet with the steering committee and all those kind of stuff, right? So you need to structure out a kind of a framework how you need to ensure that communication is effective, how to keep the stakeholders informed during the course of the project, right? So what we are trying to say again here is this. Remember, that communication plan will be designed, formulated at the beginning of the project, right? For example, if you have a project that is taking 3 years, just like your project, right? There is that passage of time of which things that were not envisaged in the beginning when you were planning a project might come across along the way. So when you are making a communication plan, it must not be rigid or too rigid. There should be that element of flexibility. During the course of the project, some other things that were not planned for might occur or might creep in. So there should be that provision for you to be able to amend, to change the communication plan along the way. That is what we are trying to say here. Implement the communication management plan and review it from time to time. It has to be reviewed from time to time to reflect with realities. It has to be reviewed from time to time to reflect realities. Let me give you a practical example, a very hypothetical example. Right? During the time of COVID, Jonga, she's sleeping. Oh man, hello, hello. During the time of COVID, were you here during COVID? You were not here. Right? You were here. Okay, you were not studying then. Okay. For example, COVID started what year? At what year? Huh? 20, 2020, March, right? Okay, we had students that started studying here 2019, right? Okay, you see, of which we had a communication plan, the way we structure our task, our year plan, right? Okay, now during 2020, what happened? There was COVID. So we had to change. The way we did things then has to change. You see, it had to change because what were not envisaged at the beginning of the year, all of a sudden, or at the beginning of the project, let me put it that way. Those ones that were here that started 2019, they started their NCV project, right? First year, second year now, there was a COVID. So we had to change. You see, make review our communication plan, whereby some of you we were doing online, right? So people were sitting at home, were doing virtual teaching. So things had to change. That is what we are saying. In project management, you might have a well articulated uh, communication plan at the beginning during the planning stage, but during the course of the project, that communication plan is subject to review from time to time to reflect the realities, right? To reflect realities, what is really happening in the ground. Does it make sense to you? Right. Then you must make sure that the project meeting takes place to inform the stakeholders. Right? Meetings is part of communication. Of course, it's a component of what is being catered for in the communication plan. Then communicate project information to stakeholders, right? To keep them aware. So barrier to project success communicated to stakeholders. So during the process of communication, not only successes that to be communicated to stakeholders, even bad news or good news, both good news and bad news needs to be communicated so that they will be well informed, right? The stakeholders' request must be responded on time by, yeah. Perhaps there could be some cases where stakeholders need some kind of clarification or request, right? You as a project manager, you must make sure that you don't sit on it. You must respond timeously. Right. Good. Okay. So the period is over. Okay. So let's yeah, we're gonna stop there. Then tomorrow, by the grace of God, we're gonna I'm going to talk to this slide, then explain to you in details what it means, right? Usage of resources and all those stuff. All are part of supervision, how to manage the resources. Right. Okay, let's stop here. Tomorrow we'll continue from here. I'm going to upload it, right?